everyone, this is Hannah and I am going to be talking about species interaction. So one important form of species interaction is the food chain. And basically what the food chain is it describes which species eat which other species. This can also be said that it is a chain that contains multiple different feeding levels. Over here we have an example of this type of food chain. We have the producers, which make their food from the sun. We have the herbivores, which eat the producers. We have the omnivore, which eats the herbivore and the producers. And we have the carnivore, which eats both herbivores and omnivores. And lastly, we have the decomposers, which eats everything once it all dies. But at the bottom of the food chain, we have the producers. And a producer is basically an organism that makes organic molecules using inorganic molecules and energy. Like I said, producers using the sun to make their food. Next, we have the consumer, and consumers obtain food by eating other organisms. We have two types of consumers. We have the primary consumer, which eats producers, and the primary consumer can be known as an herbivore. And we have the secondary consumer, which eats primary consumers, and a secondary consumer is known as a carnivore. And lastly, we have the decomposers. And the decomposers obtain food by eating dead organic materials. And these decomposers are known as fungi and bacteria and what we know as mushrooms. So next we are going to talk about the competition. And the competition between organisms of different species is called interspecific competition. And some of these forms of competition are very easy to spot, such as when animals battle over food. However, not all species have to physically fight in order to have this type of competition. One form of this kind of competition is when plants compete for limited resources. These resources are known as the sunlight, the water, and the soil nutrients. And we get this kind of competition like whenever you accidentally plant two different types of plants right next to each other, or when weeds grow and try to overtake the plant's nutrients. Next, we have a species nick. I am going to pronounce it nick. I am not quite sure how it's actually supposed to be pronounced, but basically the species nick is the total set of biotic and abiotic resources it uses. And these resources are such as the water it drinks, the food it eats, and the space it occupies. Lastly, we are going to talk about symbiosis. And symbiosis is basically the individuals of two species that live in close association with one another. We have three specific types of symbiosis. We have parasitism, which is a relationship that benefits one member and yet harms the other. An example of this is when fleas attach to a dog. The next type of symbiosis we have is communalism, which is a form of symbiosis that benefits one species while having absolutely no effect on the other. A form of this kind of symbiosis is the remora fish attaching itself to a shark and feeding off of the shark's scraps of food that are left over. And lastly, we have mutualism. And mutualism is the form of symbiosis that benefits both the species involved. An example of this kind of symbiosis is cleaner fish eating parasites off of an eel. That is all I have. I hope you will learn something new. Thanks for watching.